In this episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, we fly deep into the underground, literally and metaphorically, with Safety Dave Speerbrecker, live and in person, General Manager of Support Services at Tyson Mining. With 36 years in the industry, Dave's journey from underground miner to safety leader is a masterclass in resilience, evolution, and care. But this isn't just about a conversation about hard hats and high vis. It's about empathy in the face of injury, about mentorship that reaches beyond the mine shafts, and about people building a culture where we lift up each other, metaphorically like a geese in a V formation. We also explored Dave's surprisingly path from hospitality to health and safety. That's a story. Why support is more than a title, it's a responsibility. And how Tyson Mining is shaping the future of the industry with training, diversity, and innovation. The powerful role of gratitude and leadership, community, and connection. So, grab your headlamp. We're going down the shaft into the heart of what really matters to lead with compassion and clarity with Safety Dave. My name is Warren Barry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions. And get ready to take a deep dive on the Better the Pond Pondcast with my special guest, Safety Dave, otherwise known as Dave Speerbrecker. Well, here we are, the very first live and in person Better the Pond podcast with my good friend here, Dave Speerbrecker, otherwise known as Safety Dave,
Safety Dave.
right? The general manager of support services
Yes.
of
Tyson
Tyson
Mining.
Mining.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
it is. So, this is so exciting,
I
Dave.
know. It's fun.
Right?
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
been so we've known each other for what now?
2
Two
years.
2 years.
Yeah.
I met you originally speaking through Tech Canada.
That's right.
A little shout out to Paul Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And now Paul has sort of moved on to other adventures.
Semi-retired, I suppose.
Semi-retired.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
But now you have your new chair,
Sean Stefan.
Sean Stefan. So another shout out to Sean. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure that he
Absolutely.
gets this
Absolutely.
podcast.
Let's give
So
him a credit.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some street
Give him a
cred
give him
there.
a biscuit. Yeah.
So anyway, Dave, I wanted to have you here. Number one, from your, from the Queen City here, from
Mm-hmm.
Regina. You're doing some amazing work with Tyson Mining. You had tons of stories, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that you being Safety Dave have had a huge impact on your industry and all the people that are around you.
I often hope so. Yeah. I often hope so.
So here we go. Welcome to the Better the Pond
Yeah. Nice
podcast.
place you got here,
The
man. It's
live, the
cool.
live
Yeah.
version,
The
right?
live version. Yeah.
So, first of all, tell us a little bit about Tyson Mining and tell us about the GM of SS.
Sure. Yeah. So Tyson Mining is a mining contractor. We work predominantly in the underground mining industry. So we don't work for a specific commodity. We work for a company that's requiring some support, whether it be a shaft sink or lateral development, some feasibility, some construction work. And we've worked all across North America, a little bit into South America.
Hmm.
We've got subsidiaries so with relationships with companies in Australia as well as into the European nation too as well. So quite spread out. It's a unique company. We've been here since 1964. Tyson sunk almost all of the potash shafts in Saskatchewan. We've
Hmm.
worked pretty heavily within the uranium industry, helping out with Kojima, now Orano, Cameco. So yeah, we've helped a lot of the companies get to the ore body to help us feed and provide energy to the people. So.
Love it.
I
So,
know. Yeah.
how many employees in the company?
Currently we're around 600 employees with our division out in Quebec. We're probably around 12, 13. And then, some of our subsidiary companies have as many, or if not more. So,
So now the question is, how did you get to be known as Safety Dave?
well, I've shared this story with people. How did you become a safety guy, right? You got all your fingers and you can walk okay. Because that's typically you got hurt, you became the safety guy, right? So, back when I worked at would have been IMC at the time, now Mosaic, I worked underground for Tyson helping with the water problem at K2. So somebody had found out about the third or fourth year that I was working there. Hey, I heard you took typing in high school. I said, yeah, I did. And he said, well, can you help us with doing some work orders and ordering materials and that kind of stuff upstairs in the office too as well? I said, sure, happy to help out with that. Next thing you know, a couple days go by or a couple months go by. Hey, we got a new guy coming in. Can you do the orientation for the new guy when he comes in? What's your orientation package look like? Well, we don't have one. Hence, I started doing that probably back in 93, 94. And then in 96, I took a position at Tyson's head office as one of their corporate safety guys.
So it all started with, hey, I heard you took a typing class.
Exactly. The weirdest thing.
Which is all the qualifications of your car to be a safety
Apparently,
guy.
I could type, right? So yeah, yeah.
You
But
can make
I'd been there quite a few years, and I'd always stepped up, take the tough jobs, right? Hey, I need somebody to go around and do water sampling, and then water sampling doesn't sound very glamorous until you're doing it in the underground environment, scuttling through little caves and nooks and crannies, gathering water samples, looking to see what's in the water to help us discover how we can stop the water from coming in the mine. So it was an interesting experience, and I really enjoyed that. Our client was great to work with. They sort of helped lead the safety for our group too, as well. So I think it was a great symbiotic relationship, if you will, too. And yeah, my stepping stone into safety. After that, I just became a safety guy with Tyson. Worked all across Eastern Canada, and then came back into the Western part. Of course, I could speak French, so that kind of helped too as well. So, um, not that I speak the same French as they do at the some parts of Quebec, because that's a little bit different than what I learned, but figured it out. It was fun. Yeah, we had lots of fun doing it. And then came back here to do some work in Saskatchewan and been here ever since.
So that must be quite an undertaking if you think about like creating a mine shaft. Like, I mean, I think of like all the engineering, all the infrastructure, all the manpower, like, and all the safety,
Yeah,
parameters around that. That
yeah,
must be,
takes a long
I mean,
time.
that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, so to go from, concept of, hey, we need a shaft sunk in this location to actually completing it, it's years of effort, upfront engineering, upfront getting permitting, the clients working hand in hand with us about what do they want, what's the expectations, how much ore do you want to be able to bring out, how fast you want to travel, all those different components have to be considered, and it just takes years for that to be come to fruition. Then finally to sink it also takes quite a bit of time. A good example of K3, we probably were on that 7, 8 years, including the lateral development. We were there a long time, maybe
Mm.
almost close to 10.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a
It's a long time.
long-term
Yeah,
commitment
it is. Yeah.
for an organization too. I mean, that's a lot of manpower and a lot of time commitment to that one
Right.
project.
Yeah. Now, again, I think it's also a great nesting ground for people who are just entering into the organization to learn too, because now you're in the field learning as things are actually happening. So it's a great place to, bring young people up, bring some people in to help you with the management of it all. So there's engineering, management, HR, there's safety, there's all the components to make it all work too, right? So you certainly learn a lot, and I think that's what's kept me working for one organization as long as I have. So, yeah. So I don't think I said, but I've been with the company 36 years. So
Whew,
yeah. So
you're a lifer.
a lifer, yeah, but not because I got my hands tied or anything. It's just been always very exciting. We're never working in the same place doing the same thing. And we talk about a shaft sink, as an example. We've never done the same shaft sink twice.
Oh,
Every one is unique. There's always some different spin or twist to what that shaft needs or requires. So it's a hole in the ground, but it'll certainly different. If you look at any of the potash shafts that were sunk back in the 60s and 70s compared to the ones that are sunk now, the technology certainly is a lot different.
oh, that's gonna be a
Yeah,
massive
yeah,
change. I like what you said though. That's interesting. You're saying I've been there for 36 years, not because my hands are tied. And I think, for a lot of people being in government jobs or whatnot, it's like, you got the golden handcuffs on,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Geez, retirement's only 15 years, 4 months, 3 days, and 17 hours away.
yeah.
Right?
Start the clock. Yeah.
Or oh, geez, I got my pension plan, and I don't know what else to
Right.
do, and
Yeah,
they're stuck.
yeah.
Where you've been there for a long time, but yet you still get to learn every day, and that's what keeps you
And I
going.
still learn. I've been there a long time, and so the GM support service is what I do now. But prior to that, I was, the safety coordinator, then the safety manager, then the director of safety. So did a lot of safety stuff, a lot of training, and which I really enjoyed doing was the training of the supervisors and those team members coming into the organization. I thought that is still super fun. And I still love doing it. Um, but now as the GM of support services, I kind of still look after safety, help this tech services group, help the shop team, but I don't do it. The managers do it. I just
Okay.
make sure that they've got what they need to get their task done. So the GM of support service is exactly that. I just support them. That's my job. Um, be their sounding board, whatever. but
Hmm.
in no way am I the guy who's running the shop or telling the tech services guy how to sink the shaft or build that, right? That's their job. I just make sure they got the tools at hand to do what they need to do. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
So now that we know all about Tyson Mining and
sure.
you know how Safety Dave came to be,
Came to be
so
safety Dave.
let's go back. So I want to know though, Dave, what got you from being a gosling? Like where were you hatched? Where did you begin life? What
That's a
give
that's a great story
it,
too. Yeah, yeah.
and to when you left the nest. Now, leaving the nest can be one of two things. It could be like, okay, Dave, like kick, go, right? Get go away, learn how to
Sure,
fly on your own. Or you had, you know what, mom, dad, I'm good, right? I can start on my own. So there's one of those two things, typically happens.
sure.
And to where you are today in this very moment, Safety
Huh.
Dave, what
Uh,
is your backstory?
so yeah, so interesting backstory. I, you know, I've shared this with a few people, but maybe it's always an interesting part of the conversation. I'm an adopted child, so my sister and I were both adopted. Mom wasn't able to have kids due to an appendicitis back in the 40s and infections. Anyway, we were both adopted. So I'm from adopted out of Saskatoon. That's where I primarily grew up. My dad was a pharmaceutical rep at the time for a company called Hearst. So he was a traveling salesman, very typical travel things, gone Monday, back on Thursday, but always very supportive of our activities. But he was very entrepreneurial. So when we were about 1972, 73, Dad bought his first hotel. And then for the next 12, 15 years, we were in the hotel restaurant industry. And I called that my psychology training 101, working in bars, dealing with people. I think it just gives you a nice appreciation. And Dad wasn't a taskmaster, but back in those days, the bars were closed on Sunday. So
Mhm.
we all pitched in and we did the extra cleaning that the bar needed, the beer lines, the ice machines, the dishwashers. And then when we had the restaurants, you were either in the kitchen helping the staff in the kitchen with cleaning and cooking, or you were on the floor slinging the hash around to the customers and just make sure everything was correct and stuff. So yeah, so we did that. But the interesting thing is I started in Saskatoon, we moved to Kenaston, we were in Young, we were in Waka, Yorkton, Viscount. I was in Rosetown for a short period of time. I ran a hotel for my dad in Fox Valley, Saskatchewan. And then I moved and got a job in the oil patch in Weyburn. Then I was in Kindersley for a while, running a motel with my wife. And then all that time I got married and we had our first child when we were living in Kindersley, and then I got a job in 88 or 89 with Tyson at the K2 mine on the water problem. That's right around the time the oil field industry kind of took a bit of a dip.
Mhm.
And then in 89, I just started up at Tyson and was there till 96. And then I've been working at the corporate office since 96 to now. So the Safety Dave moniker sort of came, my name is Dave Speerbrecker is really hard to remember. So when they just call me Safety Dave, everybody will know who you're talking about. And that just separated me from the other Dave that works at our office. So I need to talk to Safety Dave, not VP of Operations Dave. So yeah, so just a bit of and it caught. People just stuck to it. And I still get greeted as Hey, Safety Dave, how's it going? So, because over my career, you can't walk into an airport, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, without bumping into somebody you know. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So you always get, hey, Safety Dave, how's it going? Yeah. And my wife, of course, she tolerates that. Uh, but yeah, my neighborhood even knows I'm Safety Dave too as well.
Even your neighbors know the Safety
They,
Dave.
yeah,
Our
I've
Safety
had to
Dave
do some safety coaching with some of my neighbors too.
with their lawnmowers and whatnot, or
Yes, there was a lawnmower involved, and it was my neighbor right next door to me, and she was outside lawnmowing her back lawn, and she's wearing flip-flops. So I had to
oh,
go and do a coaching moment, and she was a nurse, and she said, "Well, nothing's gonna happen." I said, "Okay, look, you've got something on the grass, let's say dried dog turd, and it gets flung back and gets underneath your toenail. What kind of infection are you gonna get?" And as a nurse, she understood the question, and she always pointed out next time she had shoes on, she was mowing. So
a Safety Dave moment.
safety
There it
Dave.
is right there. We're just learning, right? We're learning already.
We're learning already. Yeah. So,
So I got a few questions for you.
sure.
So
Go ahead.
Growing up in Saskatoon, I grew up in Saskatoon. I was born here,
Okay.
but I grew up in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we east side or west sider?
North, just off of Columbia Drive in that area,
Oh, that area.
just off Third. Yeah.
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 Oh, up in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where the French immersion school was. So that's where I learned my first bit of French. So
Got it. What hotel in Saskatoon did you
we
dad?
didn't. That's where Dad was a pharmaceutical rep.
Oh,
Yeah. So then he bought his first hotel him and my uncle bought one in Young and Kenniston around the same time.
Okay,
So,
Kenneth.
yeah,
I see.
yeah,
So that's the shift over
that's the shift
there.
in
Okay.
1972, 73.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Sacred Heart in Yorkton, Saskatchewan.
In Yorkton.
Yeah, we had the hotel in Yorkton, a hotel with bar up and down and a restaurant.
Which
It was called the Blackstone. Then they turned it into the Country Inn, and now it's currently called the City Limits,
ah,
right on Betts Avenue.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yorkton's a huge place.
it's massive.
That's massive.
Everybody knows where that
That's what's
place is.
behind the garlic curtain.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So when you were, you finished, you got Sacred Hearts, you got out of high school.
Yep.
Now, did you venture out on your own, or did they keep, did the parents keep you in the nest? I mean,
It's yeah. So being in the hotel business, I was going to high school and I wanted to finish high school, and all my friends were in high school in Yorkton. So when we were in grade 10 or 11, when we were in grade 11, Dad sold off the business in Yorkton, and we actually bought one in Waka. So like good family, I followed mom and dad. We went to Yorkton. So grade 11, I took my first class, or grade 12, went to my first day of class in York or Waka, and everything they were teaching in the curriculum was what I just learned in Yorkton. So talked to my dad and mom, and they talked to the teachers there. We talked to the teachers at Sacred Heart, and sure enough, that's what occurred. So it was agreed that I could move back to York and live with my aunt and uncle. And so I finished my grade 12
ah,
there. So that's my first leaving of the nest, if you will. So then I spent time with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle was running a business, and the two daughters that were living with them, they both worked still at the same hotel that we owned. So we still had lots of fun and stuff with that too as well. So yeah.
so interesting enough, I spent a lot of my teenage years in Waka,
Oh
Saskatchewan.
my gosh. Wow. Great place to spend time as a youth. So close to the lake, it was perfect. And then my dad owned the bar, so I always had beer. So
You always had beer, yeah. So
yeah,
we probably we had somebody to pull us beer
yeah,
from
yeah.
from
Well, I
from
didn't.
your from your
I didn't.
from your dad's place.
Yeah,
Maybe you sold it to him. I don't know,
maybe.
but that's awesome. So now looking back when you were, you grew up in the, obviously the hospitality industry, hotel
Hmm.
industry, that kind of thing, like
Yeah.
that. As a kid, did you ever know what you wanted to do?
No. I spent a lot of time working in the hotel industry. So I already had that kind of done. So so after I finished high school, I came to Regina for university. And my first instinct was I wanted to be a social worker, was where I first kind of started. So I
Interesting.
took the first year and a half at U of R, and that was great. No, actually almost 2 years at U of R. So taking psychology classes and all that kind of stuff, right? Arts and science stuff, and film and video because that was cool and a waste of time. Anyway,
But fun.
yeah. But so then they had moved to Kindersley then, and they were running a motel for the bank, and I went there, and then that's when spring breakup came, and that's when I got a job working in the oil patch and never went back to school. Start making money. Yeah, right.
Social work, oil patch.
Yeah, make
Uh,
money, go back to school. So, but I had aspirations to become a social worker. Reflecting back on it now, I like the course that I got on, and I'm so happy to where I am. Could some of the skill sets that I took as a social worker learning help with my safety? I think so. I think because you have to be fairly empathetic
mhm.
as a safety person, because naturally, as a safety person, you're going to be in the line of fire of somebody getting hurt and having to help them recover and understand the process of, what happens when I get hurt, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it's humans,
correct.
right?
Yeah, we're fairly
And
fragile.
you were fairly fragile
Yeah,
and highly emotional.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. And then, not only just the employee that's injured, but the families too, right?
Yeah.
Help them to understand what's going to happen and how that's going to navigate, and how can we help you to maintain your quality of life while you recover. So,
Yeah, and before I move on to the next question,
sure.
I think it's an interesting point though, because I think that when people, we talked a little bit before we had breakfast this morning, but people talk about safety, like only no one gets up in the morning and says, "Geez, I wonder what our safety record is today." So
No,
this is no one ever.
no.
And so when you look at with safety and somebody getting hurt, it is not just about the person who got hurt. it's the family that gets affected by the person going, and
Absolutely.
everyone who witnessed it
Yep.
also gets actually equally affected
Correct.
by those things. So the importance of having that empathy and understanding, and is there anything else like you said, from your experience, you're going to want to add to that? I think it's important.
It's super important. So, you know, I talked a little bit about I used to do training for supervisors. One of the things I would always dive into as the supervisor training was about workers' compensation. I don't think people really have a good grasp of what does workers' compensation really entail.
Mhm.
So I'll take the time to explain exactly what workers' compensation is going to be. Now, WCBs and all across the provinces, they do a great job supporting people when they get injured and helping them to recover, but people just don't know how to navigate those things. And it's all about communication and staying in contact and following the process, and it works. Good employers will help bolster that a little bit with a little bit of their own internal programs too as well. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of where I'd like to see that go. Um, but those are some of the biggest challenges, making sure people understand how that's going to work, and then making sure the families are supported as they go through those programs too. A lot of the hospitals have great social work programs where they'll come in and actually offer support for the families, so they can deal with, let's say somebody's had an amputation, or you know, they're going to be off work for 3 or 4 months. How do we get through this all?
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. So there's some great support systems in it, but I think helping somebody to understand how that's going to work and pointing them towards it is key.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that. Of most people when they get, when they're employed, they know that workers' compensation is there,
Hmm.
but probably have no idea what it entails, how
Hmm.
it really works. How
Hmm.
do you navigate those
Correct.
waters? Just completely blind to that.
That's
So,
correct. Yeah, and I think people need to understand that a little bit more too, right? So I think it's one of the things we need to do better, just teaching that to people so they
mm,
understand what to expect when somebody gets injured, right? Again, I think the best thing is just be proactive and prevent those things from
mm,
occurring. But when they eventually or do occur, be ready to respond, be ready to prepare and support the group, right? And again, to your point, not only just the person that's injured, but also the people around him that were there and witnessed and seen the whole scenario break
mhm.
down. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Thank you, Safety
You're
Dave.
welcome. Yeah.
So now, what is the number one greatest thing? Now, there can be a positive or negative,
Hmm.
right? Something that's happened to you that's ruffled your feathers. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about, headwinds and tailwinds, so you can
Hmm.
go down that road if you want. But I'd just like to know what's something that's really affected you, either
Hmm.
positively or negatively, and how did you respond to it?
You know that you know I'm going to do a negative that turned into a positive. How's that?
Love it.
Okay, so again, an injury at workplace. We had an individual get um, pretty badly injured. Could have, of course, resulted in fatality. Um, but yeah, supporting him and supporting his family as he went through his recovery process was tough. The investigation of that was tough. There's a lot of this finger pointing goes on about what
Mm,
happened, and eventually we got that down to, hey, look, this is a team effort. We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. So how do we make this preventable, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we got there, but there was hard feelings and hurt feelings and such that occurred for that too as well. But the success of it all was when we took the event that occurred and actually made a video about it. And we got the gentleman who was injured, we got him to talk about what occurred that day. And literally, we took him to site after he'd recovered and had him reenact. We reenacted the entire event and captured that on film. And even today, when I show that video, the hair stands up in the back of my neck and I get a little emotional because just seeing what he went through. But the success of sharing that video with our teams and talking about it, and then actually incorporating that into our supervisor training program to say, okay, here's what an accident costs. What do you see as corrective actions for this? What do you think we could have done differently? And then working with our client when we did the investigation, the great things that we came up with as far as corrective actions to prevent this again, and how quickly everybody agreed, let's make these changes. This is for the right thing to do, right? It wasn't about, oh my God, that's going to cost us so much money. It was about, yes, that's the right thing to do to prevent that from happening again. So we took a very tragic event and turned it into a very cool learning tool that I still use today. And this event occurred way back in like 2011, 2012.
mm,
Now, the gentleman who was injured, he went on to become a teacher at SAS Polytechnique in the heavy mechanical industry, so he's still around. I haven't been in touch with him in years, but um, I see him on LinkedIn. He's still alive and he's
Hmm,
happy, and yeah, so yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So it was interesting. I was talking to a safety guy yesterday. It was a client of mine, and he made an interesting point. He said, because you brought this up about finger pointing, right? It
Hmm.
says, it is impossible to blame and learn at the same time.
Absolutely, it is just you become buried in it. Yeah, yeah,
And so if you're blaming, you're not learning.
correct.
If you're learning, you're not blaming.
Right. Yeah.
And so then it becomes a choice,
Now, I think
right?
that's the big culture shift that we see in safety now, right? I think that's one of the biggest culture shifts is people are realizing that, okay, let's not blame, let's learn, right? Because
Hmm.
that's the thing everybody wants to learn. So you made an interesting point at breakfast about, well, safety isn't exactly first because nobody gets up and says, hey, what's my safety stats in the morning? But I think as an industry or like any industry, we always start off the day with a bit of a lineup meeting, a little bit of a safety topic. Of course, because it's been so warm here, make sure you stay hydrated, those kind of tips, right?
Hmm.
Which are important, but I think that is turned that shift now from when we have an event, people aren't saying, well, it's your fault. You should have trained that guy differently.
Hmm.
I think now we look at it, okay, what did we miss and
Hmm.
where can we fill that gap? And as a group, we need to do that. And that's what I've seen as a contractor. A lot of times it was always pointing out you, the contractor, did that. Now it's okay, what did we miss as a group? Because
Mm.
we're all in this together. We're all going in the same direction. So let's see if we can't solve this all together. And that's just makes for great workplaces too, as well, when you have that culture.
That's an interesting thing because I would assume, I mean, you obviously been in this business a long time, but there probably was a time with something, either number one, if someone got injured, it was suck it up,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Suck it up,
Yeah.
get back to work,
Yeah.
right? And or the well, it's not my fault, like just like the finger
Yep.
pointing and the blame,
Hmm.
right? And then everyone is, and what's interesting with the blame cycle when it comes into that piece is that when people get blamed for a mistake, what they do is they learn to hide their mistakes.
Correct.
And when they learn to hide their mistakes, more mistakes pile up. When mistakes pile up, more mistakes get made.
Correct.
But then if they get blamed for a mistake, what do they learn to do?
Hide it.
Hide it,
Yeah.
right? And this
Yeah.
cycle, right? And what's interesting is there, but it's actually the leadership of
That's
that
allowing it.
is that's actually creating the problem.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So the strong leadership just makes the whole difference in all this too, as well, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, the the interesting thing with that same thing is if you look at the incident pyramid, right? If I'm focusing on the incidents that are small, like property damages or near misses, if I focus and really struggle or source those out for what the problem is, the ones at the top, like the fatalities or serious life-changing events, don't occur. They may occur, but the frequency of them occurring are rare,
Mm.
right? So that's where you need to focus. So yes, getting people to report is key. So how you deal with when people, oh, that hurt, that doesn't hurt. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't help your cause because you need to figure out why that happened, right?
Right.
So yeah, yeah. So I think taking the time to look at the smaller events is where that success comes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
So let's just for fun, let's do this. So would you say we're talking about headwinds and tailwinds this
Hmm.
morning? Would you say that's been that scenario was one of your biggest headwinds?
Yes, I would think it's one of the biggest tailwinds or headwinds, tailwinds. Yeah, it was just it was a changing event in my life, because I looked at things that totally different after that event, and we really started to focus on let's have programs in place where when these things happen, we can respond to this quickly. We responded to events, we did the investigation and so on, but
Hmm.
let's take this to the next degree. And I think we've incorporated that now. So I'm so happy to say that our organization tries to do safety more in a proactive manner, whereas in some organization, unfortunately, it's still in that reactive
Hmm.
manner, right? So, um, but again, you're going to go back and forth. It's just the nature of the business. That's how it goes. Whether you're in my industry or any industry, you're going to see that happen. So,
So through that headwind, the challenge
mhm.
became a great tailwind
Correct.
because you learned so much from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we just continue to take that same experience and learn from it. And again, because we teach that to the leaders, they already know that conversation. They already know they can lean into the safety guy.
Right.
Again, I came into my safety position because I learned how to type, right? But I think from all the skill sets and learning from others and the organizations we worked with and the organization I work with internally, we just got better at what we do, and that's helped us to be successful in our organization. As a contractor, not only are you looked at for what it's going to cost to sink the shaft, but what has been your safety performance, and do we actually want to have you on site, right? Now you go back to the 60s and 70s, they would calculate the costs of having a fatality for every 1,000 feet of shaft. That was just a general practice. So yeah, that's that now you would never think that. You would never even say that out loud.
Yeah.
But you would never say that out loud, right? But
Wow.
that was, 50s, 60s, 70s. You plan to have those types of events, right? You look at some of the old statistics that came out of Allegheny County in West Virginia, and I do this part of my training. There was fatalities by the month, like hundreds by the month in the coal mining industry, um, of people just dying in blasts or whatever. I've got some of the old calendars or where they marked when they had fatalities all the time, and it's something I like to talk to people about how we've changed
Mhm.
within the industry, and we just see these exponential shifts all the time because of good people being out there just doing it.
Right.
So
So that's wow. It's crazy. You look back at that like, wow, then that was the norm, right? That
that
was
was just
just
that
that
was
was
just
part of the
just
nature doing part
that's
of doing
correct.
business,
Part of
right?
doing business, yeah.
And I think just one more thing before going to the next question, but I think it's interesting just by listening to you is that understanding that the safety guy is not the enemy.
No, they're not.
And it's like having HR. HR is looked at HR is always looked at as the enemy,
Hmm.
right? Is like, oh, I have done something wrong, and then therefore I will, oh my God, I got to go to HR. Oh, I got to talk to the safety
Hmm.
person, and really changing that narrative. They're not
Hmm.
the enemy,
Right.
right? They're your ally.
Correct. So now we're trying to shift that one more time, right? The safety guy is the supervisor. The safety guy is the superintendent or the manager. The safety guy is there to support those people with getting it done, the investigation. We shouldn't be leading the charge as safety people. That should be done by the management team.
Mm.
So we're just a component of that whole organization.
Hmm. Look what we're learning today.
I know,
This is
right?
crazy.
Safety's cool.
They're just cool.
Yeah,
Safety's cool.
it is.
Uh, so now when I was speaking to your group way back when, and
Yeah.
then we got to know each other over time, is that geese do fly with 71% more efficiency flying together in the V formation than flying solo.
Yeah.
So using that sort of same metaphor, what do you think the secret is to getting a team flying in the metaphorical
Ooh,
V formation?
wow. What is the
The secret
secret
sauce.
sauce? Yeah. I think there's multiple secret sauces that are out there, but I think one, of course, is engagement, right? Having everybody engaged in the same conversation. So in order to get that way, you got to make sure people understand what's the expectation and what's our goal, where are we going. I don't think if you don't know where you're going, everybody's just going to fly off on their own tangent, and you're going to have a V of one, right?
Which really isn't a V.
It's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
So that's not
that's
that's not what
not.
you want, right? So I think having everybody understanding the goal or where we're going together is key. And then I think, and I'm stealing a little bit of what you've shared with us, but just because you're the CEO or the primary leader doesn't need to mean that you're in the front. Allow those that have the expertise to help take you where you need to go too.
Mhm.
And I think that's a blend of a good relationship or a good organization is people understand who can actually take us to the promised land and get us there.
Yeah, I talk about good leaders lead,
Hmm.
great leaders know when to get out of the way.
Right.
And I think there's a lot to be said for getting out of the way and letting other people do what the better than
Right.
they do it better than you do. So just get out of the
Right.
way.
So when we talk about my position as a general manager of support services, it's not my job to get into the weeds and help them do the job. It's to make sure they have the tools so they can do the job.
Right.
Let you lead. I'll be there right beside you. I'll help you get where you need to be, but it's not my job to do. It's my job to make sure you have what you need.
So first you said, if I recap that, is number one, know where you're going,
Know where
right?
you're
Have
going.
have
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Have a
direction
direction.
and clarity of direction,
Correct.
right?
Communicate that.
So like careful if you don't know where you're going because you just might get there, right?
Right.
So first of all is know where you're going. So you're knowing where you're migrating to,
Correct.
who's coming with us, where are we going, how are we going there? What does it look like when we get there? And the most important thing, and what I think is why.
Yeah, I think
What's the purpose?
why? What's your purpose? Yeah, and everybody likes to know what their purpose is, right?
Right.
We're all purpose motivated. So getting there is one thing, but why are we going there?
Yeah.
Right.
Why
So
does it matter?
yeah. Why does it matter?
So then the second part of what I heard you say is about communication, right? Is this,
Yeah.
right? And I would say that, geese, when they're flying, they always hear them honking, and
Hmm.
geese honk to motivate,
Oh, okay.
right? They honk to motivate. So there's two reasons they honk to motivate, and then they get the sonic wave back, so they always know where they're positioned. So it's constant
Okay.
communication. So in my world, there's no such thing as over communication.
I agree.
But and one of the questions I've been asking recently, especially with business leaders, is, are you honking to motivate, or are you honking to complain? And therein lies the question. So, but I'll just leave that hanging there. But what I heard from you though, Dave, is like what some of the secret is: number one, know where you're going, and the second
Yeah.
is communicate it,
Yeah.
right? As to so everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah. I think that is the best way to try and approach things is communicate it, communicate it, communicate it. And don't be scared to course correct either, right? If you see something in the horizon that's going to cause us grief, let's just move around it. And I think that's also a sign of a good leadership and good leadership team when they can speak up and actually say, "Hey, look, that direction looks a little problematic. Let's just slide over this way a little bit." So
Geese never take off into a storm.
they do not.
They do not.
No.
So,
Yep.
and there will always be crosswinds, and there's always
Hmm.
going to be headwinds, and there's always going to be course correction as we go,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So, good leaders know then when to course correct.
Correct. Listen to your team. They're the ones that help you get there. Yeah.
Honk.
Yeah. Honk. Yeah. Yeah. You put them in the view because they had a purpose. So listen to their purpose.
Anything else like to add to that? Secret sauce to the V formation?
Oh, I've seen many different types of communications. I think, good on one-to-one conversations are really important. Get to know your people.
Mm,
You don't have to know them, inside and out, but let them feel comfortable enough that if they have a problem, they can come speak to you. I think sometimes some leaders make themselves, unapproachable. And I think there's got to be some sort of boundaries, if you will, between you and your employees. But I think you should also have enough that they feel comfortable enough to come talk to you when they have an issue too, as well. Especially if it's any kind of internal strife between individuals and stuff that they can come and share with you that there's some sort of problem. So I think that's really important too. Yeah.
so trust.
Trust. Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Short word, I guess. Yeah, for that long sentence. But yes, trust. Trust each other. Yeah.
That's how I roll.
I know, right? Rocking it out.
So, Safety Dave. Now,
Yes,
this
sir.
could be either you or Tyson Mining, right?
Hmm.
Whichever approach you would like to take with
Sure.
this is, what are you doing to better the pond?
Hmm.
What ripples are you creating out there in the world?
Hmm. Interesting question. So we're always looking for opportunities to a betterment of our organization, right? But our organization is built with people. And there's a large variety of people out there who've never worked in the mining sector. One of the biggest challenges that we have, of course, I think some of the other podcast members that talked about this, is where do we find our people from? So we need to develop them. So we need to create some sort of programs. So we've been looking at some really interesting ways of doing some programs for training people how to do shaft sinking. You just don't walk into a store and say, "Hey, I need a shaft sinking miner. I need a guy that runs that piece of equipment. I need a person who can run that piece of equipment." You have to train them. It's such a unique set of skills that are required for it, right? And you can't be scared of heights because you're going to be working at heights most of the time. So yeah, so we have to build them. So designing programs for that is one of the things we're working on. That's really cool. And then we're looking at multiple cultures too, right? Trying to get more women into mining, trying to get more visible minorities into it too as well. I think there's some great opportunities to bring those people into the organizations. So working in the North, we've worked with lots of the RSN people too, the residents of the North, First Nations group, Aboriginal groups, and that's been terribly successful too as well. So much so that sometimes our client will say, "Hey, we're going to hire that guy because he's really good." And hey, that's a compliment to us because we've done well training him and the client likes him. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah. Uh, yeah, so that's kind of one of the things we're making a little ripple in the pond with too as well. I think from a personal side of things, one of the reasons why I went from the director of safety to the general manager of support services uh, was how I had built up the safety team. We'd gone from, traditional reactive safety programs to a very proactive, and the team sort of utilized itself internally. It wasn't just the team at the XYZ operations. It was, if I had a question, I would ask all the team members for that answer, and they still do that now. So one of the goals that I have is to sort of get all our teams to do that now too as well. So very quietly in the background, I keep pushing teams together to work together and help out each other. And I see some successes coming, and I still got some areas to work on. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Always room for improvement.
always room for improvement. Yeah.
Is there anything that Tyson's doing on a community aspect that is
Yeah. So like I said, Tyson's been here since 64.
yeah.
We're a very quiet organization. We're owned by a single individual. So we're not like a board group or anything like that. We're just owned by one gentleman who's family's been owned the company since the late 1800s.
Mm,
We've supported some pretty large donations to the Children's Hospital in Saskatoon.
mm,
We do some around here too as well. Yeah, so we do lots of internal community stuff too as well, and then of course supporting the some of the First Nations work too as well. Being involved with them, trying to make sure we use them as suppliers for employees, for subcontracting and such too as well. So yeah, making sure they were a good steward in the community is one of them. One of the groups I do work with is the Saskatchewan Mining Association. So last year we had the Geo Venture Tour, which was the Saskatchewan Mining Association leads bring teachers to different mining sectors, and we had them come to our shop and we showed them all the different underground equipment and had some barbecue and yeah, got a chance to tell the teachers about what a great opportunity for students, so we can bring more students into the industry. Mining as a whole pays well. It's great career opportunities. You're utilizing some very highly technical equipment. Um, you're using some of this equipment under full remote control or autonomous equipment too as well. So the industry's got some really cool stuff going on. And then of course we hear a lot about electric vehicles. We're seeing a lot of that come into
mm,
play now too. That because that helps with a lot of our underground infrastructure. So BEV, battery operated vehicles are becoming very popular now too.
right.
So, but that now comes with a special skill set for the mechanical side of things. So
Mm.
mechanical, electricians, and then, surveyors, geologists, all those people need to come into it, and they can all be learned through us. So
I was at that event.
yes, that's right
I
too.
was there.
Yeah,
Did a
that's
little,
right too. Yeah, yeah,
did a little barbecue, but
that's
I got to
right.
talk to
Yeah,
the teachers.
yeah,
But it was fascinating for me to see some of the equipment that
yeah.
that are that is down there and what it does and just like in the size. It's if you know nothing about it, I'd highly
Right.
recommend looking into it because it is pretty
It is
fascinating.
cool.
And the other thing is, as you know, that we talk about that I'm on a mission to get youth into trades. So I think that, they got, trades and mining in there. I mean, there are so many different capacities
Hmm.
of mining, right? There's a lot out there. So, doing what we can to get the teachers involved so we can help get the
Yep.
students involved. So, give those kids an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? This might be a really interesting, line of work
Hmm.
or career choice that I could make that they may have never even thought of.
Right. And they don't have a student loan when they're done either.
And they don't have a student
Right.
loan with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. For all the
Yeah.
parents out there,
See?
there it is.
So we're doing that barbecue again in
All right.
August. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Will I get the invite?
Sure. Come on.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
All right. So what's one lesson that you've learned along the way? And my usual question is to an entrepreneur starting our business today. I'm going to change the question.
Sure.
What's something that you've learned along your way of all the years you've been in with Tyson and safety, that you'd actually let a youth know today that would inspire them to get into your industry?
Hmm. Um, well, not to steal any kind of military, but go to cool places and see cool things and do cool things, right? So, um, the one thing about the mining industry, you're not specific to one location, so you can always be going to different spots to do that type of
Mm,
work. And a lot of them are camp type life, so you get a unique perspective. But the schedule could be cool. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That sounds very pleasant. You can learn how to operate all kinds of different heavy equipment. You can be a mechanic, you can be an electrician, you can be a surveyor, and then if you've got the skill sets for computers and stuff, be the planner, you could be the purchaser, you could be the warehouse person, you could be the person looking after the inventory. It takes a lot to run a large project. If I've got a fleet of 50 pieces of equipment at a job site,
mhm.
I got to support all that, right? So I got to make sure all the bits and pieces are there for that. Fuel, the spare parts to repair them, and then make sure all the employees are getting paid, make sure that they're being flown in and flown out on time. Nothing makes a miner more upset than not getting home on time,
Hmm.
right? They'll come to work late, they don't care, but they want to make sure
Funny.
when it's time to leave, it's time to leave, right? So yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I think if you're, somebody who wants to get into the industry, don't just think of it as going underground bashing rocks. There's a lot to getting in the mining sector. And it can be from all kinds of skills. And of course, even the HR side of skills, hiring people, and working with people too as well. Training too, right? If you've been a teacher and you want an aspiration to do some different types of training, it takes us days to go through the orientation to bring people up to speed for what they need to know to be on site too as well.
Hmm.
And then you also the other thing people don't realize too is about being a mine site. You can also learn how to do emergency response too as well. So not only are you learning to become an emergency responder who runs towards the issue versus running away from,
Right.
you take that skill set back to your community and you can become a community leader with that kind of skill set too as well. So I think it's a lot of really different things. So if you don't know anything about mining and you ever want to know more, I've mentored many people in getting into the safety game. I'm always happy to do that too as well. So
And,
what
and,
training to need and stuff. Yeah.
and we're gonna get to that in a second. So
Okay,
I have
cool.
one last question for you,
Shoot.
Dave.
Yeah.
Safety Dave.
Hmm.
If you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say?
Oh, oof. It's got to be politically correct, right? Use your blinker. Well, maybe that's it. It's something as simple as that. Just communicate with each other, right? Be kind to each other. I don't think in our busy worlds, we're always running around trying to do this, that, and the other. But just take a moment that other people are busy too. It's not your lane, it's our lane. Let's use our blinkers and communicate our intentions and just be kind to each other. If I had to stand on top of a mountain and share any kind of thought, it's nothing special. It's just about let's just work together. Let's be a community.
Just keep it simple.
Keep it simple, man. Yeah.
Use your blinker.
Yeah. Use your blinker, right? Yeah. I think a goose in a V formation would honk appropriately if it's going to change lanes, right? So, yeah. So same thing. Use your voice. And I think that's probably the word I would use is use your voice. If something's not right, speak up.
Hmm.
If you're not happy with the way it is, speak up. There's I listen to weird music, but there's a song that just came out recently, and it says, if you don't have enough time in the day, you're complaining you don't have enough time, stop watching TV.
Mm.
If you're looking for the love of your life, stop. All these things will happen in time.
Hmm.
Manage yourself. Use your voice. Speak up if you're not happy. If you're not happy with your job, go find another one. Come work for us. We'll happy to take you. I don't know.
Sage advice.
I don't know. Maybe that's
So Guru Safety Dave has just spoken.
well from the top of the
On
mountain.
the top of the mountain. Well, in Saskatchewan.
In
Top
Saskatchewan,
of the mountain in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, pilot view.
So on that note, Dave, I would, thank you, number
Yeah,
one, for
pleasure.
having the first in-person podcast, right,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
office here. So I am myself am honored.
Yeah, me too.
I want to thank you for sharing your stories and your
Yeah, my
time.
pleasure.
If anyone wants to find you and
Mhm.
have the conversation about, how amazing Safety Dave is, that's a long conversation. Prepare yourselves.
Mhm.
But no, if they want to learn about Tyson